The Ministry of Finance, Incorporated, on Monday met with the Nigerian stock market community to outline the strategies of the specialized agency and how it plans to enhance federal government's assets and investments. Let's dig for more on this as we turn to Professor Ken Ife, a development economist and a member of the Governing Council of the Ministry of Finance, Incorporated. A good evening to you, Professor, and nice having you with us on our Rice Exchange tonight.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
We appreciate your coming through. Let's start by explaining to me a little bit the structure of the Ministry of Finance, Incorporated and its main objectives and mandate.
In terms of the structure, it has a governance. First of all, you have an executive committee led by Dr. Armstrong, and then you have a board on top of it, and then you have a presidential governing council that sits at the apex. And that's meant to act like a custodian or board of trustees sort of thing. That's the organizational structure. But in terms of their role, they have a very, very crucial role to play in the whole funding and various asset classes and investment and asset management. These are all taking these two to the frontiers of best practice, international best practice. And definitely is going to be a game changer in the way it is structured and the way it's coming across right now, and as you could see from yesterday's outing.
So what is the core mandate of the Ministry of Finance, Incorporated, Professor?
Well, the core mandate is to actually bring what used to be a dormant asset management to the frontiers of best international practice in modern management of sovereign assets, and also in the investment for sovereign assets. That was lacking, and the way it was before was very pathetic. But now you have a moving train that is going to do four things essentially. One is bringing higher visibility to federal assets, which means that the people are now going to know what we own. And then what we own, we now enter into the lending and financial calculus, as has never been the case before. Because people know what we owe, but they don't know what we own. And when you now start shifting from debt financing to asset-based financing, the equation changes dramatically. Because we do have already 18 trillion naira assets under management, some of the viable ones. And then when you begin to rejig the likes of NMPC and some of them and take them to capital market, you're just going to get a transformational approach to the whole thing. I think I'm going to give you one example. Saudi Arabia that needed $25 billion didn't go to borrow it from World Bank or anybody. They just said, look, Saudi Aramco is my oil company. Can you tell me the value of it? $1.5 trillion. They sold 5%. And then 2 years after that, the value went to $2.3 trillion. That's the kind of dynamics you are going to see when they actually get around to doing all that. But the second one, of course, is also to improve the liquidity of existing assets. And then the third one is to sweat the dormant assets and bring them to contribute to the liquidity. And then, of course, they will also, in investing, they will choose investment portfolios that will balance look at our priorities and focus on the priority areas of the government, the social and economic. So that's the four major things that it's going to be doing.
Well, the word on the street right now is that the government may be considering letting go of some of those assets, but we'll talk about that in a short while. But how wide-ranging are Mofi's, the MOFR's activities within the spectrum of the federal government of Nigeria? What does the MOFR sit on? Are you virtually in everybody's face, in every government, every part of government activities? How wide-ranging is this organization in terms of what it has the capacity, the mandate, and the objectives to deliver?
No, it does have the mandate. It has the objectives, very, very clear objective. It has a strategic plan. And you know that government, federal government, owns thousands of companies that are very dormant. And then you have some of the ones that are active, operating suboptimally. And then there are investments that we could leverage that we are not doing, and we've all kinds of investment, all kinds of bonds that you can issue, and then you can target the development priorities. And then all of those have been left to, look at how when we privatize the power sector, yes, we use the transaction advisor, which is the BPP. But then, if you go into that, you could hardly find any income coming to government. You look at other areas like aviation, we invested so much money to build new terminals, but what money is coming in? You have rail line, what money is coming to government? So we just have to move on and then do this business the way it has to be done. And this is one of the problems facing Nigeria when it comes to debt, because we keep borrowing and borrowing, and you can't see conscious effort to retire the loans that are borrowed. And this is because of the way the Mofi has operated in the past. But now it's a different story, a totally different ball game. They're very, 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 very active asset management company now. And then you have to look at investment. Anything that crosses their path, they'll have to take a good look at the investment potential of that asset, and then decide whether they put it back for sale or they put it, whatever they want to decide. But they will have a thorough look and investment evaluation of these assets.
Interesting. So when we look at government assets for now, I'm sure the NLNG is one of those golden geese. But again, you mentioned at the start of your comment about those refineries and the NNPC. Now, you've got a whole lot that your team is doing, but where and how does the Ministry of Finance incorporate its objectives in sync with other agencies? You have the NSIA, which is the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority. You have the BP. You have other agencies. Are there overlaps anywhere? How do you folks work together?
No, there's no overlap, because whereas the Mofi focuses on federal government assets all over the world, NSIA looks at the federation business. And federation business are always around the oil. You have the excess crude account. So they go there to invest some of that money in the excess crude account. Excess crude account is really where you have budget monies exceeding revenues from the oil and crude oil exceeding the budgeted figure. So whatever you have that, then they want to move in and get some of that. And then you also have a future generations fund, you have infrastructure fund, you have stabilization fund, some of all those funds that are drawing from the petroleum sector. Those funds have to be managed and invested. So that's why the NSIA is there. So it's federation business that it is looking at. But there's far more things to do on the federal side. The federal is pervasive and it affects all the companies, all the agencies, all the ministries. They all have a lot of idle assets that have to be brought into use and sweated.
How would you...
Then in terms of the others, the BPP is a transaction advisor, ICRC is a regulator on concessions. So there's no conflict at all. So we will give BPE assets that we want them to privatize. And then we will ask ICRC to come and concession whatever assets we decide we have to do that.
But those decisions will have to come from the National Council on Privatization, does it?
Well, they actually have complementary roles, the two bodies. But there's absolutely no doubt that at the operational level, it is Mofi, Ministry of Finance Incorporated.
Yeah, quite a number of government agencies or government assets that are under the Ministry of Finance Incorporated will need further investments to get them to function optimally. So what options do you think the Mofi should be taking moving forward? Is it government to put in more money or to allow the private sector to take charge? Whether 100%, 50%, whatever, what do you think? What should be the way forward?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure at the moment that Mofi is looking for government to put in money. Other than, it's not like the infrastructure company that redid a 1 trillion naira kickoff investment before it could start. But Mofi is actually having a lot of assets to look at and then bring them into although some of them might actually require investment. That's why we have the investment arm. But they have a lot to do in, bringing back some of the dormant assets into use and then sweating them to generate revenue. And let me give you an example. If you decide now to, I think that decision may well have been taken already. If you look at NNPC, if you go to the capital market, NNPC is owned by both Ministry of Finance Incorporated and Ministry of Petroleum Resources Incorporated. So both of them own that asset. And if this asset goes to the market, it's going to bring a lot of revenue. We know that very well. And then, of course, revenues that you get, some of them can be reinvested in tidying up and bringing dormant assets into use. So there are mileages at all in this operation. So I'm not sure that we are out here now to go and put more pressure on government to go and raise the money because there is so much in the dormant assets and so much to come by way of optimizing the current revenue flow from the existing assets that are working.
So if you want Nigeria to optimize and re-energize, what part of the assets do you think will be the best cash cow for Nigeria right now in terms of effects that the country really needs? In what sectors within the portfolio of MOFI do you think should be focused on to take straight to the market, whether just in Nigeria, take to London, take to Luxembourg, take to New York Stock Exchange, wherever?
But if you look at the current revenue flow from Forex, 79% of it is coming from crude. And so is 11% coming from gas. So 90% of the existing revenue flow for Forex is coming from those two. So you cannot, even though we are all moving in the direction of going away from petroleum resources, but you can't tidy that up. The pressure on the Forex and is all coming from the crude and and then you also have other potentials. So taking it to the market will be a good one. But of course, you have other things like modular refineries that could quickly give us a breathing space. And other measures. There are lots of measures that we have been thinking about that could bring. There are other proposals to bring in FLNGs, the floating LNGs, which will rapidly, within 3 to 6 months, generate unthinkable revenues, unthinkable. This what they could bring. And they are more important now because with the crisis going on in Niger, we are not sure now what will happen to the transatlantic pipeline. And I know it takes much longer to even do the submarine pipeline going to Morocco. This one is going to Algeria from there to Europe, but the FLNG will be instant and the revenue will be cash cow. So I think some of that area will change the picture, the Forex picture.
All right, thank you so much. We are very grateful for those insights on the operations of the Ministry of Finance Incorporated. Thank you very much, Professor Ken Ife, a member of the Mofi's Governing Council and the Development Economist. Thank you. Have yourself a great evening, sir. Thank you very much.